Your circumstances aren't keeping you stuck. Your relationship to the circumstances is what's keeping you stuck. If you change your relationship to the circumstance has no choice but to reflect back the new story. If you're new here, I'm James, and I talk about identity shifting, self-concept, and nervous system regulation. And in this video, I'm going to be explaining why focusing on your circumstances is keeping you stuck and what to focus on instead. So the main mistake that most people seem to make is focusing all of their attention on their current 3D circumstances. Checking for signs, looking for movement, watching out for the text that comes through from their SP, looking at their bank account, wondering when it's all going to happen for them. And I know it feels productive looking at a certain situation and thinking, right, how do I get through this? Let me try and do this so I can get here. And then once I'm there, it will allow me to feel like this. But that's just not how it works. Because the more you focus on something, the more you react to certain situations that come up. That reaction is what keeps that process or that cycle keep coming around to you in different ways, different forms. It's the reaction, it's that intense energy that you end up focusing onto that problem with. That's what creates it again. So when you're looking at your bank account and then you can see on your statement an extra bills come out that you weren't expected, and then you end up having a real big reaction to it, where how am I going to get that money? Like, I needed that money for this or that. That's feeding it your attention, which then creates more of the same pattern, same results. So effectively, it's like trying to drive your car in a straight line, but you're looking in the rear view mirror the whole time. So what are circumstances? Circumstances are old manifestations. They are the previous beliefs, states and assumptions that you've previously held about yourself, about how the world treats you, about how people treat you. So what you have to realize is the 3D, the external world, is a lagging indicator. It's like seeing yesterday's weather forecast today. And there's good reason for that, because if we did manifest instantly and it happened instantly, it'd be good for the good things, but for the bad things, it'd be also quite bad. But that's the trap as well, because most people treat their circumstances as truth instead of old information, because it's not who you currently are right now. So your circumstances are not telling you who you're becoming, they're showing you who you've been. So why do we become obsessed with our circumstances? Well, one reason is your nervous system seeks clarity. It wants to know it's safe. It's always constantly searching for threats to protect you, but that can also work against you, because the nervous system can keep you in a state of minor or major fight or flight, which then blocks you from being able to separate yourself from that circumstance. The second reason, the ego wants proof. It wants to know that it's okay. It wants to know that it's safe as well, even if that's detrimental to what you want to manifest into your life, because the ego doesn't care about that. The ego would rather be in a familiar hell than an unfamiliar heaven. Which is why when you're in a state where you want to change things in your life, you want to change your actions, you want to change your behaviors, you can start doing that 1 day, 2 days, 3 days in, and then all of a sudden you go straight back to square one with it, because the ego wants to pull you back in because it doesn't feel safe with these new actions and new behaviors. Regardless of if the end result was going to be beneficial to you and the ego, it still won't let you go. So then the fear creates the check-in behaviors and all of these sort of things. So then we start to get thoughts like, if I can just understand this circumstance, maybe I'll feel better. But it actually has the opposite effect, because the more we check, the more attached we become to the circumstances or to the person or whatever it may be. So here's the full cycle of that in action. The circumstance appears. You see your SP with somebody else, or your SP tells you, I don't love you no more, I don't want to see you again. And then you react emotionally. You start spiraling, you start obsessing over the words that they're talking, or if they're never going to speak to you again, or they really are happy with that other person. You just start going way too deep into things within your mind. But then that reaction reinforces the old identity. Like I said before, the more of a reaction you have to these things, whether it's good or bad, it will create more of them things for you. And then the old identity recreates the same thoughts. So now you can start to see how the patterns keeps going into a loop. And then the same thoughts create the same circumstances, and then the same circumstances create the same assumptions that then take you all the way back to the start of that cycle again, and then we restart the whole thing again. And maybe the first circumstance was about your SP saying they don't love you no more, but then the second time we start again, it could be about money, or it could be about health, or it could be about any other situation you've got going on in your life. So I'm going to tell you why ignoring your circumstances doesn't necessarily mean delusion. See, in the law of assumption, you're not pretending your circumstances don't exist. You're not trying to suppress the emotions that come with the circumstances. You can acknowledge that they're there, but you don't have to identify with them. You don't have to give them your reaction or your attention. There's a big difference in experiencing the circumstance and then reacting to it than experiencing the circumstance and not identifying with it, not giving it your attention, not being consumed by the emotions, thoughts and feelings that come with that circumstance or that experience. You can acknowledge that your SP hasn't texted you without becoming rejected, abandoned and unwanted, because it's a choice to give it your reaction. It's a choice to put your attention on that. The same way that it's a choice or a decision that you go through the same experience but feel chosen, wanted and prioritized instead, because the event and the meaning are separate things. So let's get into the mechanics of what we need to do going forward. Regulate, decide, and move. Remember them 3 words. So when your circumstances show up, you regulate your nervous system back to safety through breath work, grounding, walking, whatever you actually enjoy doing that takes you out of the circumstance and into the present moment. Then you decide, who am I being? What identity am I operating from? Someone who's chosen or someone who's rejected? Someone who's wealthy or someone who is consistently poor? This is where you get to decide. You choose what it is. You choose the meaning of the event that's going on around you. You choose what it means to you. Then you move. You continue behaving as the new version from the new decision, and you stop negotiating with circumstances. Like I said, you can acknowledge that they're going on around you, but you don't have to identify with them. You can give it your own meaning. I'm going to give you a personal example of how I done this. So when me and my SP, we broke up, there was about 8 months of me just trying all of the manifestation techniques I could find. Everything, robotic affirmations, visualization, SATs, affirmation, whatever, you name it, I've done it. Inner conversations, everything. But I was still constantly checking in between doing these methods. I was still constantly looking for signs, looking for movement outside of me, completely focused on the circumstances that was going on. And nothing changed. Of course it didn't. I hadn't made the decision that I was a new identity. I might have been doing all the techniques that you hear about and learn about. Neville Goddard, Joseph Murphy, whoever it may be. But they are just techniques. It's not the technique that manifests, it's you. It's your decision behind the manifestation technique that works, not the technique itself. It took me a long time to work that one out, because it's you that has the power. It's nothing outside of you can have the power to change your life but you, but your decision. So after them 8 months of trying this and trying that, I ended up just deciding. I dropped every technique. I didn't do any more. The only thing I used to say to myself is some positive affirmations. I used to say them with conviction. They're not just affirmations that I was repeating or anything like that. I would say it once with pure conviction from my chest. I would say, this is how it is now because I fucking said so. The 3D can't tell me nothing anymore. I decide who I am. I decide what I have. I decide who I am. And every word that I used after I am became who I was in that moment, because there is only this moment now. So then after doing that for a little while, I got to a point where it didn't matter no more. It didn't matter if I got the SP back in. Yeah, she didn't have to come back in anymore. It could have been, I got to a point where it could have been her or it could have been someone new, and I was completely fine with that. Or nobody at all for a while, because I already felt it. I decided I was chosen. I decided that I was the priority. I decided that I was already loved exactly how I'd like to be loved, and in the perfect relationship with the perfect person. I completely shifted my focus back to my identity, back to me. I didn't affirm for her. I didn't even visualize her. I didn't even use her name. I didn't even think of her in the end. I just knew that I was already loved. I knew that I was already in that relationship, and that was it. And then all the pressure disappeared. I was able to work my job even better because I wasn't thinking about the SP anymore. I was able to just take walks with peace in my mind because I wasn't thinking about her no more. It freed up every area of my life. There was so much more space for the new things to come in after that point. And then guess what? After 8 months of trying, within 2 weeks of getting to that point, deciding that I was okay now, she came back in. easily, effortlessly. It was so smooth. And that was just by dropping it. I just decided who I was and I carried on with my life. Done. And I knew it was done. And then when it happened, it just felt normal. There was no excitement about it. I was happy and I was grateful. But I just knew it was normal for me now. So here's a question to start asking yourself. If circumstances are telling me who I've been, why am I letting them tell me who I have to be next? You have to remember that the cause comes from here. The cause of everything that's going on comes from here. You are the cause. The 3D world is the effect. So if you are the cause, that means you have all the power to change the effect. Right, so I'm going to leave you with a 7-day challenge. For the next 7 days, I want you to stop checking, stop analysing, stop looking for signs, and stop checking progress. Regulate, decide, move. That is the motto. That is the mantra that you should be living by now. Regulate, decide, move. Regulate the emotions. Create the gap between you and the emotion. From that gap, you get to decide. Decide who you are. Decide what it is. Decide what it means. And then move like it is already done. Move like you are that person now. Move within them behaviours of the new person. And then you drop it. And then every time it comes into your mind or circumstances get a bit worse or SP doesn't do what you want them to do or this unexpected bill comes in, you keep returning back to regulate, decide, move. Keep repeating that process as many times as you want, because you don't want to use this as another technique or another tool, but the more times you keep coming back to that center by regulating, deciding and moving, you're instilling a new program within yourself. You'll keep coming back to that decision, which means it's becoming your dominant state. And we all know that the dominant state, your dominant state, is what gets reflected back in your 3D world. So the more you keep coming back to that decision, the more that new story, the new identity, is going to be reflected back to you from your 3D world. You got this.